I was a little bit too big for it and pumped it up and pumped it up and pumped it up and got like stuck inside the cock pump.
A pleasure-lit welcome to the Pleasure and Toy Queen podcast, where we dive deep into the world of pleasure empowerment, guiding you to unlock your full pleasure potential to live and be pleasure-lit. Hosted by me, the multi-award-winning Pleasure and Toy Queen. As a certified conscious kink and pleasure educator, creator, reviewer, and queen, my podcast inspires exploration and embraces a conscious, holistic approach to pleasure, kink, and toys. So, join us now to feel empowered and inspired on your pleasure journey. I've got a guest speaker with me, which is Luke. He is a sex educator, creator, and one of Australia's leading relationship and intimacy coaches. He has a passion for helping couples and individuals explore sexuality, expand their intimacy, find their edge, and come back to hot, steamy love. Luke shows up with his authentic humor and knowledge to break down taboos, guiding you on practices and tools for all the hot shit. Luke brings a depth of knowledge on communication, connection, and intimacy to make your lived experience one pleasure. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
I always love to do these bio introduction. It's always like, oh my God, it feels so special to have you here.
Yeah, I love it. I actually love writing a bio because it gives you an opportunity to sit back and think about, what is it that I'm really good at and what is it that I'm bringing to the world? So, yeah, thank you for reading that out.
And that's always like, I get that feedback from all my guest speakers. They're like, oh my God, I feel so good about it. And this is why I love doing it, just to like really raise you and be like, here you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Start with a couple of starter questions to get to know you. Where are you currently at on your own self-love and pleasure journey?
I am, as far as self-pleasure goes, fairly adept in my self-pleasure practices. I love using self-pleasure to be able to, ground myself, move through emotions, manifest, the things that I'm trying to create or bring into my world. My self-love journey, as of recently, has been a little bit shaky. I've been going through some pretty serious neurological health problems, which has kind of rattled my cage a little bit. So I'm having to use all of the tools in my toolkit at the moment to, maintain and create self-love.
Big heart I'm sending. So it's good that you know that you've got some tools and that you know that you can use them. It's really good. What brings you the most pleasure?
What gives me the most pleasure is actually giving other people lots of pleasure. When it comes to intimacy, I'm a big giver. I love, being, the puppet master and pulling all of the strings and, watching the little pleasure centers light up and, reading all of the signs and, just pulling the right strings to see somebody having the most pleasurable dropped in yummy experience. I guess work-wise, the thing that gives me the most pleasure is facilitating. I love facilitating groups and watching people facilitate their own shifts and changes and awareness, seeing the difference between people that come into a session or an event to when they leave. That gives me a huge amount of pleasure.
I love that. I recently had someone on who suggested about writing a pleasure list about what brings you the most pleasure, but by like time limits. So when they have got 5 minutes on the day or like half an hour, and I'm like, oh, I've got half an hour. What can I include today? What is like for half an hour and brings me pleasure? So they go on their list. I like your idea of also thinking about what is bringing me pleasure in business, what is bringing me pleasure like with partnership or maybe solo. So you could also categorize that as well, and then be like handy of like.
Yeah, I was even thinking of like what brings me pleasure from like menial tasks as well.
Yeah.
So like, for example, this morning I put up a shade sale for my girlfriend because she just bought this really fancy new car. and I started my career as a tradesman. So I actually got a whole lot of pleasure out of doing hot tradie shit. And she's there being like, oh, babe, wow, this is hard. And then, I finished the project and it was brilliant. And I stood back and I was like, that is extremely pleasurable.
Love that. That's so good. That can be so hard, especially like when it's your thing and you're like bringing joy, and then she's just like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, pretty much. So I was getting pleasure from her pleasure, and yeah, there's so many things that I get pleasure from.
Love that, because we're all pleasure beings. It's accessible to us at any time if we are opening ourselves up to it.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, the list could go on. That's actually a really great list. We should make that happen.
Yeah. I would love to talk about toys with you, especially in regards to men pleasure, because just yesterday I received another comment about me having 250 plus pleasure toys and toys. And I get this comment of like, it's like how do they call it? Throwing a hot dog down the hallway. And I never heard that comment before until I think about a year ago when one of my reels went viral about all the toys. And after I've heard it or read it for like the 5th time, I'm like, what is on with this hot dog down the hallway? And it basically is a analogy for if I would have sex now, the penis wouldn't even feel the walls anymore of my vulva because I'm too loose. So I'm getting these comments of men still feeling very intimidated or insecure about pleasure toys. So I would just love to hear about your perspective to pleasure toys.
I mean, I'll give you a quick little rundown on my journey with sex toys, because this might make a lot of sense to any of the male listeners out there or the female listeners who have struggled with their male partners around this subject. When I was quite young, I don't know, like maybe early 20s, 20 possibly, a partner of mine got gifted a vibrator, and it was like the typical old school vibrator from like, probably 20 years ago now, nearly 20 years ago, like the one that had the rabbit on it and the head twisted and it had the pearls in the middle.
The pearls and it's like that jelly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was one of those. And, I was just coming into my sexuality. I'd only been having sex for about 4 years. And, I was just coming into figuring out what works and what doesn't work and, reading the body and getting everything into that. And next thing, she brought this thing home that was like, had all of the moving parts and all of the things, and it freaked me the fuck out. Like, I was terrified of this thing. I like grabbed it and I like measured it up against my own cock, and it was like,
oh really?
And it was like a little bit bigger than mine. So then I like went into like a bit of a comparisonitis scale, and I said to her, like, I don't want you to use it. I'm like, no, like I don't like. We're putting it in the bin, and I just went into full fear state that this thing is going, like, look at it, of course it's going to do a better job than me. And then as I've gone on my journey along sexuality, it's been nowadays I love toys. Like, they're my favorite thing to be able to use, and I use them in my coaching, I use them in sex work, I use them like in all parts of my sexual life, and they enhance my experience. Like, one, I use them on myself, and 2, I use them with my partners to enhance the experience and have more tools in my toolkit on ways that I can deliver pleasure. Another brilliant way to use it is like if I find that my eros is like extremely charged, like it's right near the surface, and I know that my orgasm is right near the surface, and I can do all the breathing techniques and I can do all of the semen retention and all of that. But sometimes I'm like, I just actually want to enjoy the eros that's running through my body. Like, I'm so charged up. I want to keep this running. I don't want to like push it down. So I'll go and grab a toy and pleasure my partner with a toy and like, get them closer to where I'm at in my experience. And then we can come together and, merge and edge and have so much fun together. Even in like, I'm in a long distance relationship at the moment. So toys become so fun when you're still trying to stay sexually connected when you're not together. And it's like, oh my God, I've had some of the biggest orgasms over the phone and my partner has as well, when I haven't even been in the room. And then it means that when we do come back together, that erotic charge that we have with each other is still so tangible. It's right there. So yes, I went on the journey of like being intimidated by sex toys. And probably as a younger man, I probably did think some of those thoughts around like, well, if they're using a dildo bigger than my cock, then, you know, they're not never going to enjoy my cock ever again. They're not going to be able to feel it, you know, all of that sort of stuff. But I can categorically say to everyone that's out there listening that it doesn't work like that. The yoni is, it's elastic. You know, it can stretch and then it goes back to its natural form, natural shape. Obviously, like if you're somebody that's coming in with a, you know, really big cock and you've got somebody who hasn't really experienced a big cock in the past, then sometimes, you know, there's a process of like relaxing the muscles to be able to receive that. But there's a lot of women out there that, and men, that just enjoy the feeling of being full, being filled up, but it doesn't take away from the totally different enjoyment of having a human body interact with them. They're two very, very different things, in my opinion.
Yeah. A couple of things to that. I recently had someone on, and they have got a relationship where he works FIFO. So he's 4 weeks there, 4 weeks off. And she said the same, like in the 4 weeks that he's not there, she's got now one of the Highsmith's premium sex machines. So she can have that stimulation of penetration without manually holding it while he's away. And then when they come together, they're having fun. So they're including toys as well. And another thing that you just mentioned about actually physically holding it against you to like check the size. That's like, wow, I've never thought about like to really compare about it. But I can understand because like some of the toys that I have, I mean, you've probably seen my Mr. Baroon at Sexpo when we saw each other. I had this massive bad dragon dildo.
Yeah.
Where everyone was just like, really? And I'm just like, yeah, not every day. Like, can't do it every day. But like, if I want to feel really filled out, or something like fisting, like you widen, you prepare yourself. So it doesn't happen just like that. So you're going to have lots of preparation, same as anal. So you're going to have to prepare yourself. And then eventually you can get to that point. And it all stretches, like it all goes back down again. I mean, we can give birth. So, and everything is tighter after that again too.
Yeah, I mean, like I've been in intimate play with people where we've used like really big toys, and then, you know, and worked, like as you said, prepared and worked our way up and make sure you got the right lubes and, you know, all of those sorts of things, and then gone straight from that into intimacy. And I can honestly say that I haven't felt a difference. Like, it's not like they've got like a wizard sleeve for a vagina after that. It's like, it still feels fucking incredible. So I think the fear factor around it is that comparisonitis thing. It's like, you know, even that bad dragon. It's like, well, if my girlfriend's like, you know, using that bad dragon every afternoon before I get home from work, then my cock looks nothing like that. It's not going to feel anything like that. So if that's what she's enjoying, then why, like, you know, where would the desire be around my human penis?
Some of the toys that I've got, like for example, a black vibrator, I get comments too. Oh, why does it have to be black? If it's big, why does it have to be big? Or why can't you get a man? Or no one can satisfy you now because you've got all these toys, which I know it reduces back down to a reflection of their insecurities. So there is something about them that makes themselves feel insecure, that they can't give enough. But I try to also then explain, you've got so much more to give. If you are just comparing yourself to the size of that dildo or vibrator, you're reducing yourself down to just your dick, like your cock. And you've got so much more to offer than just your cock.
Yeah, like I've worked with a lot of guys who have, like I work with a lot of clients who experience premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction. And honestly, toys have saved their relationship. And it saved their mental health as well, around reducing themselves and their capacity to be a good lover or to be intimate to just their cock. And then as soon as they start to be able to deliver pleasure with toys, and they start to realize that, oh, I can still be the master of pleasure here, then a lot of the times the mental game around their cock disappears. And next thing you know, whilst they're playing with the toy, their erection comes back, or, they know that they can bring their partner closer and closer, so that when they do get into sexual intercourse, then they can enjoy that time together.
Yeah, it's true, because it also takes that pressure away of, I need to perform right now. And sometimes that's exactly what's needed, to take off that pressure, to actually have that erection again, to actually be in the moment and be present. I've also heard that you can use toys to really train yourself as well. So if you have been growing up to masturbate in a certain hard, rough way, you can actually use toys to retrain your masturbation and then bring that into the bedroom as well.
100%. It's one of the biggest tools that's used in like erectile dysfunction or premature ejaculation. Is tools like, are we allowed to name brands?
Yeah.
So like fleshlights, for instance, probably the highest quality and the best quality that I've been able to find, for men who, a lot of the times when they're masturbating, which is their often their dirty little secret form of self-love. They want to have a dopamine hit, they want to touch their body, they want to self-pleasure, but they've still got some shame around it, or they, maybe they're just used to doing it hard and fast. So it looks like what I call the monkey wank. So I'll just move my chair back so you can see what I'm talking about.
Monkey wank. I've heard about like the death grip or something.
Death grip. Well, I call it the monkey wank. And if you've ever been to the zoo and you go to the monkey enclosure, there's always like one monkey in the back corner who's, bent over with his back arched. That is what a lot of guys will do when they're self-pleasuring, and that trains their body. Like if you've ever played sport and had a coach say, we play the way that we train.
Yeah.
So that's training your body to receive pleasure in that way. And then you get in front of a beautiful human who's got lips and breasts and nipples and, skin and, smells and sounds and all of the juicy things that comes with being in front of a human. Then they get sensory overload. It's like, oh my God, this feels so different to my hand. There's wetness, there's warmth, there's all of this sensation going on. And next thing you know, it's overload. And, they come too quick, or they get in front of this beautiful human, all of those same sensations come in, and they think, fuck, I'm not going to be able to perform. Yeah. So next thing, I'm not going to be able to please this human, because all I've been doing to practice is watch porn and beat myself senseless. So using things like fleshlights to bring more sensation to your cock, with lots of lubricants, so that you're actually practicing with something that feels genuinely more like a female body. And two, around self-love, giving yourself more sensation whilst you're touching your body. It's not just about training. It's about like, well, if I'm going to masturbate or I'm going to self-pleasure, why not make it a really juicy self-pleasure?
Yes. And you can even have some of the masturbators or pussy pockets, fleshlights, whatever, or sleeves. You can actually also, there are some that you can put against the wall or somewhere else, and then you've got your hands free to actually touch yourself and be like, oh, I have also that sensation of like being touched, slowing it down and just like really being present.
And there's the really cool machines that have come out now that are like the female version of the fucking machines, where they'll have the pussy pocket or the fleshlight on a contraption that will literally fuck your cock for you, whilst you can sensationalize your body and like breathe and edge yourself and try and bring as much sensation into your body whilst you're breathing to be able to enjoy the pleasure without going over the edge of orgasm. And then, it's all over.
Oh, I love this today. I've actually just tested a toy just before we got into this podcast episode, so I'm very satisfied. And talking about toys is such a good day for me.
Great. We just got gifted a toy recently that I wanted to show you. It's pretty cool.
What Luke just said about the masturbators, you can actually attach that to the Highsmith sex machine as well. So it doesn't have like dildos anymore. The Highsmith sex machine, you can put a masturbator on there as well, and then use that stroking for male pleasure.
All right. So this is the newest toy in the collection.
Ooh.
It was
I like.
made by hand by a friend of ours.
Oh wow, that's amazing! Look at the textures.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Hey,
And a bigger head.
yeah. Yeah, there's the other things that men can use around, like, using them to, again, increase their sex game for themselves and also bring more pleasure into their life is the, like, bare minimum, the basics is cock rings.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way to be able to, keep blood flow into your cock and bring more sensation, because kind of the way that the cock works is that, arousal and engorgement is welcome, but not necessarily. Like, you can have so much fun with a flaccid cock and your balls and your butt and all of these things. But the more blood flow that is in the erect penis, the more sensationalized it becomes. So sometimes using cock rings to be able to bring extra sensation into your cock, to then be able to practice your breathing techniques and edging and going through that sublimation practice to be able to, like, realize when you're getting to an edge and then be able to bring yourself back a little bit. Cock pumps are really one of the basics as well. They can be really
Have you
fun.
tried a cock pump?
I have tried a cock pump, and I nearly got stuck in a cock pump. I got sent a free cock pump by a sex toy company to give it a review, and I was a little bit too big for it, and pumped it up and pumped it up and pumped it up, and, like, my cock got, like, stuck inside the cock pump. And
Oh my.
yeah, and I had to, like, reef it from side to side and back to front to try and break the air seal on it to get it out of there. But it was actually really interesting because I ended up using it in a lot of my work with men around erectile dysfunction, because I had a flaccid penis, put my flaccid penis in the cock pump, put the seal on, pump, 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 pump. Next thing you know, I had an erect penis, like, without any stimulation, without being turned on, eroticized, whatever. And the way that we use it in therapy is that if men have this inner belief that I just can't get hard, or, I get hard and then I get soft, basically it rewires the brain to be able to say all it is blood flow. I
Yeah.
just need blood flow into my cock. And you can combine it with the cock rings, that if you are struggling with erectile dysfunction, is to pump, 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 get an erect penis, throw a cock ring on, and you can be good to go. And often it's normally the case that once you have an erect penis and you start to engage with, a partner, whether male or female or anything in between, and you start to get that body stimulation of being like internal penetration, then a lot of the time you're good to go from there as well.
And when you are ready to unlock and widen your pleasure potential, then I highly suggest you join the Pleasure and Toy School, which is also your go-to if you would like to make an income while experiencing pleasure to become a successful pleasure toy-preneur. And if you would like to see more of me, your favorite one-of-a-kind pleasure toy queen, I highly suggest you join one of my adult fans pages, Pleasure Toy Queen. For more details on how to join it all, go to pleasuretoyqueen.com. I'll see you there. Have you tried cock rings as well?
I've tried cock rings, yeah. All of different types. Like, there's the vibrating ones that you can use to, to give yourself pleasure, and that your partner can, rub their clit on the vibrating cock ring, so that you can sort of grind on each other and have some extra fun with that. They're super fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the first ones when I had a partner who then pulled out a cock ring with a vibrator on it. It's like, I just got this one new, and apparently, like, it should give you some sensation as well. Let's try that on. And I'm like, okay. And he
Yeah.
put it around. It was the first time I saw it. I'm like, are you going to be okay with that thing around there? So I was just like, that was like early days. And I'm just like, oh my God. But
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, it's so good. Like, it actually helps me to, to keep it up longer. And once I've done a little bit research around that, that's actually one of the reasons why they started to use these cock rings, to actually keep the erection for a longer period of time.
Yeah. And it's like, there's so many interesting ways to use those vibrating cock rings too, where, like, most of the time people think about having them turned up so they're at the base of the penis, so that the female's clitoris can sort of be touching it at the same time. But if you have your balls tucked in and wrap it around on your perineum, And, if you can get a hand down there and pump it onto your perineum as well, it can send like vibrating shocks up through your prostate, which is super fun.
Yes, I have actually someone sent me a double cock ring to just unpack. I can't physically review it, but I put it around the dildo and then used it on myself with that dildo to feel like how would the receiver woman female feel if that would be in use, kind of. Get a little bit of that reflection in there. But it was interesting because at first one went around the cock, the second one around the balls as well. And depending on where you put the vibrator bullet, you could either have it that way that it is stimulating the woman, or you can actually put it the other way where it's like stimulating your balls and perineum as well.
Yeah.
So
Brilliant.
amazing toys out there for males. Like,
mate, there's some amazing things. There's the sleeves. There's so many fun ways that you can play. Because it can get really boring sometimes just using your hand and beating your meat, and like, relying on stimulation through porn to like bring those neural pathways into alignment to then connect down to your cock and be like, I'm turned on enough to be able to come right now. Like the whole self-love part of self-pleasure is like, my body is capable of so much pleasure, like so much stimulation. What can I discover about myself to bring eros into my day? But then if I get in front of a partner, a lot of the times from what the feedback that I get from both males and females is, you'll get a male in the bedroom and, if they're a little bit shy or not super confident in their sexuality, they'll say, a female or a male partner to a male might say, what do you enjoy? What sort of touch do you enjoy? Oh, whatever you want. I'm happy to, all good. What do you want to do? Whereas if you get in front of any sort of partner and you stand in front of them and you say, what sort of touch do you enjoy? Like, what do you like in intimacy? And they give you your fucking hit list. Like, I love my nipples being squeezed. I like really soft touch and then really hard touch and then go back to soft. I like the context. I like the contrast. I like my butt being squeezed. And this is all the stuff that you can discover during self-pleasure. Like, I like my hair being pulled, I like being choked, I like being scratched, I like a bit of feather touch, I like my muscles being wobbled like a bloody vibrator on my arms whilst I'm in intimacy. And this is all the stuff that you can enjoy during your self-love and self-pleasure, so that then when you get in front of a partner who's willing and able, you're like, all right, I got a whole menu here, let's go.
Exactly, that's the point of like self-pleasure, to deepen the connection with yourself, fall in love with your body, explore your body, because the more you do that, the more confident you're going to get about your own desires, needs, limits, and you can communicate that and have the best pleasure.
And like I said, when you said one of the things that gives me pleasure is teaching people. So I love when I get in a relationship with a new partner and you got to crack the code. Like, you got to figure out the new code to that new partner because everyone's slightly different. And, it's so helpful when you've got a partner who's got some tricks and tips that you can take on board, but then you also enjoy the journey of like, figuring the code out for yourself.
Yeah.
But it's really helpful for, say, me, if I've got a partner who really wants to be able to please me and maybe might be a little bit unsure, then I'm confident to be able to say, maybe just try this a little bit slower, a little bit faster, maybe just lick your finger and stick it in here. And, it's fun to be able to know what you like.
So how did you get from comparing yourself with that dildo vibrator to actually now totally embracing, including toys, teaching about toys? So how did you make that transformation? What kind of tips can you give someone who's in that state of like, oh yeah, I'm still comparing myself to toys, I just don't know how to like get over that?
What I guess the tipping point for me was when I started to study sexology, and I got into a relationship. I left a relationship and then got into a relationship and didn't have a lot of confidence, especially around oral sex. I was pretty confident with my hands. I was pretty confident with my cock. But I wasn't very confident around oral sex. So I read a book called She Comes First by Ian Kerner. Most incredible book for anybody, that men or women, that want to learn about oral sex on a female body. And I read this book twice whilst I was on a long work trip. And I came back and I told my partner, hey, I've just read a book, I'm ready to go. And they're like, oh, you
Come
can't.
here.
They were like, no, they were like, you can't learn this shit from a book, mate. You can't teach me any new tricks. And I went in and followed the book and followed the tricks and tips. And they were like, holy fucking shit. And that was the tipping point for me, that it's not all about my cock.
Yes.
And I was like, I was like dealing out orgasms like Tic Tacs with my mouth, and just having the best time seeing that pleasure, and feeling so confident in my body that, I can give pleasure with my hands, my tongue, my mouth, my cock, like just touching somebody. I was learning all about sexology and like the elements of touch and massage and all of these things that bring eros to the body. And at the same time, I was like not desensitizing. I was becoming more comfortable with the different aspects that are available through sexuality.
Yeah.
And toys were just there. They were available. It had always been like, the rabbit or the little bullet. And, I think I got, I sent a bunch of sex toys once I started to get a little bit big on Instagram, and my old podcast was getting a little bit bigger. People were starting to send stuff through, and I was just having the best time with my partners playing with these toys, and just like seeing what we could do with them, see how much fun we could have with them, and then still seeing them turn around and saying like, oh, now I want your cock.
Yeah.
Like that was fun, but now I want your body on my body, in my body. And it was like,
because in the end, that's the human connection, and that's like the real thing. That's that energy exchange, and like you said, the smell, and just the physical, the touch. Like a toy can't give you that.
Can't tell you how many times I've been in intimacy with a female, and they've had like the little suction clit suction clit toys, or like a bullet or something on their pussy, and they've been like trying to concentrate on keeping it in the right spot, and all the things, and then next thing they've just thrown it across the room, and they're like, fuck this shit, come here, I want you. And it's like, so fun, but nothing replaces human connection. I think that was the tipping point for me. It was one, realizing that all of it is part of my toolkit to be able to enjoy pleasure with somebody, and two, nothing replaces me. There's no toy out there that replaces me as a human.
And that brings it back to what I've said at the start. Not reducing yourself down to just your cock, because you do have more to offer you. That's like your whole package. So there's so much more pleasure that you can give, but also receive, and then combine it. So, and then bring toys in as teammates, work colleagues, whatever you want to call it, friends. And then it can just enhance the whole thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, just seeing, like you said, seeing them as your friends. They're not your enemies. You're on the same team. You're trying to give pleasure to the people that you care about. You're not trying to you're not taking pleasure away from each other. And a lot of the guys that I've talked about that are terrified of sex toys are the same guys that are, having a wank 2 or 3 times a day and would be terrified to tell their partner about how many times they wank. It's a projection.
Have you got one crazy, wild toy experience that you can think of to share?
Yeah, I got a few. I'm just trying to think of the most appropriate or the best one. The
pump one is already a wild one.
That was pretty wild. I've got photos I can send to you. It's not pretty. It started to go blue. It was not fun. I guess the first time that I used the Cervix Serpent 2.0 from the Yoni Pleasure Palace, it's a crystal wand, which is like curved in a serpent shape, and it's got a big bulbous end with ripples on it to be able to like hit the G spot. The first time I used that, it was like one of those times where a partner of mine had like a really energetic like portal orgasm, like they saw colors, they went on a little journey, and I was going so slow with it, and I was just following the body, and because it was glass, it wasn't vibrating, it was just kind of an extension of myself. That was really special to use something like that was like really felt like an extension of me.
Love that.
That was really, really special. Yeah, that was probably my favorite one, and that's probably my favorite toy that I've used. Another
Yeah, I was
time,
just about to ask you if you've got a favorite pleasure toy.
yeah, that's my favorite pleasure toy.
Yeah.
Um, there's that, and it's just so brilliant the way that it's shaped and carved, and it just makes it so easy to be able to use the handle to sort of make that scooping action, to be able to
Yeah.
really slowly or fastly be able to hit that G spot, and then the other end of it you can twist it around to circle around the cervix inside as well, which can bring a whole different type of orgasm, cervical orgasm as well. There's just so many ways you can use it. It's really good for anal play on myself as well, the way that it's shaped. Like I can use it
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
myself.
that's like the Enjoy stainless steel wand is one of
Yeah,
them that can be used for women for squirting, but also for males for the prostate. And like I had males reaching out to me and said, like, Patricia, that just makes me leak cum. Like as soon as that's in,
yeah,
it's just wild. And just today, I have tested a stainless steel beaded dildo that has one side that is basically for vulva havers for squirting, and then the other one is so beaded that you can use that one in your butt. And I was just like, wow, that weight, then also the temperature that you can include. And I love these kind of toys with that little bulb then, because they are firm and it's just that pressure, and you don't even need to like nothing wild, just
yeah,
that right stimulation, and it just opens up
yeah.
pleasure
And like
portal.
that was it wasn't the first time that I'd experienced squirting, but it was the first time that I'd experienced squirting where it wasn't, that violent, getting
Yes.
there. It was like you could go slow, and because it's solid, I really quite like solid sex toys. I don't really like
Mm.
using silicone in myself or on partners. I'm more of a crystal, ceramic, glass kind of guy. Um, and I don't know, one really favorite um, experience was I had a partner who really liked the feeling of being really full, and they
Yeah.
had like a really big black dildo, and they had it inside their yoni, and I just had this intrusive thought in my head of like, oh, I reckon it'd feel pretty good to be in there at the same time. And I mentioned it, and they were like, that's exactly what I was thinking. Where's the loop? And it was like an incredible sensation to be in at the same time as this
Yeah.
big dildo, and them enjoying going slow, and them like having the feeling of being stretched, and me having the feeling of being in there with some other stimulation. That was a pretty cool experience as well.
Love that. Yeah, I love glass ones, stainless steel. Crystal is a bit of a mixed topic because it really depends on the material as well. So there's usually a recommendation of using a condom over it if you want to use that internally.
Mm,
So I rather use that one like for external rituals and stuff. But what I also just wanted to mention in regards to anyone listening with the sleeves and pussy pockets, like Luke also has mentioned, he was a bit bigger with a pump. You need to also find the right size for you, because I have heard some stories from my males on my adult fan pages when they reach out and we talk about toys, that they break easily one because they're just too big for it,
yeah,
or they don't feel as such because they're too small. So you really need to find your right size in this regards.
I agree that like the fleshlight's probably the best one that I've found, because you get the same size canister and you can get different size sleeves to fit into it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably another great story. Is the first time that I did a talk at Sexpo. Um, I think it might have been the year that you were there, and I did a talk around. It was called Penis, 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 and Fleshlight
Yes.
gifted me a whole bunch of cocks, dildos, and a whole bunch of fleshlights. And then at the end, they said, "Oh, you can take them." So I covered the stage in cocks and yonis, and I went home and I like gifted my friends these fleshlights, and they're all like, a bit tut tut, only creepos use fleshlights, or I don't know. There was some sort of stigma around it. And I went home and used it, and it literally felt like it sucked the fucking soul out of me. Like it was the biggest, best self pleasure orgasm I've ever had. It was like vacuum. It was like it feels like when somebody's giving you a blowjob and they suck the semen out of you when you orgasm. Like it was insane. And I used it like to get better at edging and extend my orgasm. My mates
Yeah.
started to use them and love them. Their partners started to love them because they started to like give their partners a hand job using the fleshlights. So they were using it in partnered play and not just self-pleasure play. It's an incredible tool.
What I also want to mention is even women, females, can start include male toys into their fun. Like I find it extremely hot. There are so many amazing toys now. It doesn't have to be like a pussy pocket or like a masturbator. It can be also these, they're like half sleeves and they are vibrating sleeves now as well, or clear sleeves, or ones that have like a vibrating tip on the top as well. And just using that on him or putting on a show for each other or something like that, it just can be so hard until you're just like, all right, now put it aside. Let's do it.
Yeah, or even sometimes not putting it aside. I love having
all that.
I love having a mutual like a solo next to each other masturbation session. It's so fun. Like watching your partner in pleasure. Oh, it's the best. You can learn a lot from watching the way somebody else, like your partner, pleasures themselves. That's another pro tip as well.
100%. I sometimes say that to women who struggle with voicing, I say, how about you, and even if you feel like you don't want to like be watched, you can put on a blindfold and pleasure yourself, but let your partner watch. And just so they can see how you actually like it, if you don't feel like you can voice it vocally of like how you're being like to be touched. And just by them observing you, then they can learn a lot as well. So, and it's kind of like voicing. Maybe next time you take your blindfold off and then maybe you start voicing it. So just slowly, step by step, working your way up.
100%. Toys have got a huge place, I feel like, in solo pleasure and coupled intimacy. They're such a good tool to be able to expand your experience of what can be possible.
Yes, yes, yes. Where can people find you when they would like to work with you?
The best place to find me is on Instagram, at Luke Skewes, LUKESKEWES. You'll have to type the whole thing in. I'm sure that it'll be in the show notes because I'm a naughty boy and I'm constantly getting shadow banned. But yeah, Luke Skewes, just send me a message. You can go to the link tree, see all of my courses and programs, and feel free to just ask me a question. If there's something that you've enjoyed from the show, give me a shout out. And if you've got something that you need help with, just slide me a message and I'll get back to you.
Love that. Have you got a favorite, I call it pleasure wear? It could be a certain brand or fabric or a certain kind that when you put that on, you're just like, I feel amazing.
I'm pretty basic with my pleasure wear. I just like a really clean, brand new pair of Calvin Klein undies.
Ooh,
just classic, crisp. It's masculine. I'm like constantly buying new pairs of Calvin Klein undies because I like to, if I'm going to remove my clothes, that I've got a crisp, clean pair of Calvins on and not a pair of Bonds with holes and, ratty bits hanging off it. As far as female wear, I can't really go past Honey Birdette. My partner's got I'm looking at her wardrobe right now of Honey Birdette, and it just turns me on so much. I love Honey Birdette.
Yeah. Do you have a book recommendation in regards to like self-love or pleasure or man pleasure?
Yeah, I think my book recommendation would be what I mentioned earlier, is She Comes First by Ian Kerner. Because it just unravels. It's everything that we really should have learned in high school, but they're too scared to teach us. It's an incredible book. So that's all about giving oral pleasure to the female body. It explains female anatomy, how long things take, where things are, and then at the end of the book, it gives you a bunch of cheat sheets. This is the beginners level 1, beginners level 2, intermediate, expert, and it gives you basically a playbook, like do this for 5 minutes, then move to this, and it's like you don't have to stick to it, but it's like just a really good way to have some tools. And then he's got another one for giving oral sex to the male body, which is called Passionista, and it's excellent.
I haven't heard about that one yet.
Yeah, Passionista by Ian Kerner.
I've got the other one, but I don't have that one.
So
Not yet.
Not yet. I guess for the male bodies out there as well, something just around like the self-love piece, especially when it comes into relationships. Just coming from a psychological standpoint, there's an incredible book called The Way of the Superior Man by David Dieter. And
might have heard about that.
And for me, it really is a great tool for like what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, like that cock's bigger than mine or comparisonitis. It's about building your confidence as a man. And at the end of it, it talks about semen retention and breath work to be able to control and empower yourself with your orgasm.
Amazing. All right, one last question, which we're going to leave the audience with. What is your number one tip for self-love or pleasure for the audience?
Lube.
For us.
Lube. Use lube. Get some really good lube. Get some high quality lube. Get a few different types of lube and use lube. That's my, however much lube you think that you need, double it and enjoy the sensation of lube. Use lube all over your body. Use it on your nipples, on your chest, on your neck, on your cock, on your yoni, on your
Viva
butt.
lube.
Viva the lube. My top tip is lube. All the guys out there that are getting rashes on their cocks, get some fucking lube.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into this pleasure-lit episode. Please do me a favor and follow and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And also, share them along so we can spread more pleasure into this world. And if you've not given this podcast a rating or review yet, please do so now. Thank you so much for your support. Until the next episode, with love and pleasure. Mwah.